All right, we're recording. All right, say hello to my little friend. Oh, Bob. Bob got in there a little too much. Okay, so we got some interesting folks here. Al Capone, and we've got our friend Rockefeller here. And I'm going to give you a different sort of take on the what caused the prohibition today. So I'm wearing my Dr. Zamzi shirt, so you can see him in his laboratory. And there'll be other videos about Dr. Zamzi, but today we're going to talk about the hidden fuel war behind Prohibition, how Rockefeller killed ethanol and made gasoline king. So, like many movements, the true nature of it is sort of masked by what the public is told. And you'll find that theme in many of my articles. So that's what this one's going to be today. All right. Hopefully you learned something new. Prohibition wasn't just a moral crusade. It was a calculated strike by oil barons to crush ethanol as a competing fuel. The 18th Amendment wasn't about sobriety. It was about monopoly. Now, the sanitized myth of prohibition. The standard story goes like this. Early 20th century America, worried about alcoholism and social decay, embraced a rising moral movement. The temperance groups, backed by religious fervor, rallied enough support to pass the 18th Amendment in 1919, outlawing the manufacture and sale of alcohol. It was, we're told, a story of social reform, misguided but well-intentioned. But that's a fairy tale. Behind the curtain of sermons and picket signs was a ruthless economic war, a quiet but decisive strike by the oil industry to kill a rising threat, ethanol. And at the center of this strategy was John D. Rockefeller Sr., the richest man in America and the founder of Standard Oil. Ford's ethanol dream. Oh yeah, this is here. I guess we got Ford, Rockefeller, and Capone. I'm just trying to remember who this guy was. I mean, I know who Henry Ford is. I just couldn't remember when I looked at this picture because I wrote this in June 21st, 2025. All right. So Ford's ethanol dream. Before gasoline became the default fuel, the automobile industry was wide open. Electric cars, steam cars, and yes, alcohol-powered cars were all in play. Henry Ford, one of the most influential industrialists of the time, was not only aware of ethanol's potential, he actively promoted it. When Ford introduced the Model T in 1908, he made sure it could run on ethanol, gasoline, or any blend of the two. This vision was a decentralized fuel economy where American farmers could grow their own energy, literally turning corn into car fuel. In fact, Ford was quoted in 1925 saying, "The fuel of the future is going to come from fruit like the sumac, or by the road, or from apples, weeds, sawdust, almost anything. There is fuel in every bit of vegetable matter that can be fermented." By the mid-1910s, Midwestern farmers were producing ethanol at scale. In states like Indiana and Iowa, ethanol made up as much as 25% of automobile fuel in some areas. Small distilleries were popping up across the countryside, many of them farmer-owned. It wasn't just an agricultural byproduct anymore. It was a growing, scalable, and competitive fuel source. This was a direct threat to Standard Oil and its gasoline empire. Rockefeller sees the storm coming. John D. Rockefeller, a master of monopolistic strategy, didn't become the richest man in the world by waiting to be disrupted. He understood vertical integration, control of supply chains, and most importantly, the value of eliminating competition before it became a problem. He couldn't just ban ethanol outright, but someone else could. By the 1910s, the temperance movement had become the most effective moral crusade in America. Organizations like the Women's Christian Temperance Union and the Anti-Saloon League had mobilized millions. They didn't care about fuel. They wanted to save souls, but they were underfunded. Then Rockefeller stepped in. In 1917, just as Congress was considering the 18th Amendment, Rockefeller donated $350,000, roughly $8 million today. That'd be cool if somebody could just donate $8 million. $8 million to the Anti-Saloon League. That donation funded nationwide propaganda campaigns, political lobbying, and media saturation. It gave the movement teeth and speed. Shortly after, Congress passed the 18th Amendment. By 1920, Prohibition was law. The coincidental collapse of ethanol. So, the coincidental collapse of ethanol. The amendment didn't just outlaw drinking. The amendment wasn't just about drinking. You got to look at the fine print. It banned the production, sale, and transport of all alcoholic products, including ethanol, even for industrial and fuel purposes. Yeah, that's just because of all the drunk people at the saloon, right? That meant Midwest distilleries shut down overnight. Farmers lost their local ethanol markets. Ford's ethanol-compatible Model T had one less fuel source. Gasoline was now the only legal, scalable fuel option, and Standard Oil dominated it. Prohibition lasted from 1920 to 1933. By the time it was repealed, ethanol fuel was no longer a threat. Gas stations had blanketed the country. Cars were tuned for gasoline only, and Big Oil had cemented its monopoly. Why the history books stay silent? Yeah, right. You don't find this story in most history classes. Why? Because it challenges the tidy morality play Americans are taught and exposes how elite interests co-opt social movements to serve corporate ends. Yes, the temperance movement had a genuine grassroots support, but not a coincidence that the movement's most successful moment came after it was bankrolled by the man who benefited the most from banning alcohol as a fuel. This is how real power works. It doesn't just show up with guns and threats. It shows up with donations, slogans, and moral causes. Final thought, Rockefeller didn't start the prohibition movement. Oh no. But he did hijack it, funded it, and used it as a surgical weapon to wipe out ethanol. The public thought they were voting to end drunkenness. What they got was a rigged energy market, a gasoline monopoly, and a lesson in how billionaires use virtue to mask power grabs. So the next time you hear someone say prohibition was just a failed moral experiment, ask them, failed for who? All right. This is Rolf from Waves and Positions, and hopefully I made you think and you learned something new. And, on my Substack, you can read this article. It has tons of references. I add all my references when I'm doing my research. And don't take my word for it. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people state something on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere, and they have no reference to a factual scientific document or a research paper. They're just regurgitating like a Fox News statement or a CNN statement or some kind of thing that they heard from someone. So if you hear something, go research it, find out the truth. That's what if I can get one person to go find the truth for themselves, then I'm doing something fun here, doing something good for humanity. All right, check out my Substack, Waves and Positions, and see you on the next one.